Welcome to the Polish Podcast, a space dedicated to emboldening women in their faith and work. I'm your host, Jane Doerman. At Polish Network, we recognize that your work is more than just a job. It's a calling. That's why we're here to provide the connections, development, and spiritual nourishment you need to flourish. Each episode delves deep into topics that resonate with our Polish community. Join us as we hear from inspiring guests who share their unique perspectives and experiences as Christian women in the workplace. No matter what brought you here today, we're thrilled to have you here with us. Our aim is to ignite your passion and empower you to excel on your leadership journey. So let's dive in and explore together. We're continuing our exploration of leading with care, and today's guest is on a mission to help busy people effectively and efficiently move from feeling stuck in stress and trauma to reaching a place of emotional peace and clarity. And her name is Leah Brown. Leah is a licensed professional counselor, certified coach, and the host of the Flourishing Flame podcast, where she champions her mission of guiding individuals through transformative therapy. Her enduring passion for helping and nurturing others profoundly influences her counseling approach. Leah recognizes the therapeutic space as sacred, where each individual can show up as their authentic self.
I see therapy is that I'm always looking at the root and the root cause. And when you're getting to the root of the problem and replacing the thought process, that's deeper than going in and changing behavior or the behavior patterns. And so that is where I take that from. It's a space in an emotional sense. It's also a space in a physical sense, building that therapeutic relationship and how crucial that is. And that really goes to that space, right? Because it's building the space in acceptance. Because I hear from people a lot, I've never told anyone this before. And sometimes it's things that they're ashamed of, and sometimes it's things that happen to them, and sometimes it's those things that happen to them that they feel shame around. But one of the ways that I try to build that is in using the five senses. I use that in my therapy, but I also try to use that in a session. So I try to, in my office, even think about how does my office itself and the five senses that are represented in my office help people to feel a stronger therapeutic bond. So even choosing the paint color was a decision in that. Trying to make sure that my office smells good is part of that too, right? And just all of these little things, they seem little, but when you're in the middle of it, you don't notice them because they're there. But it adds to that experience of feeling comfortable and feeling like you can share and being able to feel a connection with the therapist.
Leah's practice is marked by an extraordinary level of intentionality. Her meticulous attention to creating a nurturing workspace, both physically and emotionally, serves as a catalyst for her clients, fostering this sense of safety that encourages them to embrace vulnerability during their collaborative work. Central to her approach is a profound curiosity that shapes and enriches every interaction.
I think a huge part of curiosity is being curious about what the people that you're leading are like. So that goes to personality too, because there are some people. I did a whole series about personality on my podcast, and just understanding people's personalities and what motivates them. And so there's some things that are just general across the board. People tend to gravitate towards either tasks or people, and people tend to be either outgoing or reserved. And so when you can understand just some of those fundamentals about personality, it makes a difference in how you express your curiosity as a person, like understanding yourself. Then it helps you to say, okay, outgoing people and people tend to be more curious about people, right? And so if you're more of a task-oriented person, then you have to be more intentional about being curious about people. And Also, task-oriented people, if you're too curious, then they feel like there's some underlying thing that's going on that might get in the way of what they're doing. And so just being aware of that curiosity is a gift, and it's a gift to the person who you're asking questions and getting to know them. It's also a gift to you, as you're the one who's being curious. You're going to learn more, and it creates a type of intimacy in the relationship. If you're the leader and you have people that you look at them and you notice they really are in tune with others, then asking them questions about themselves and about their family and about the things that are going on with them, they will feel much more loyal to you as a person, and their work for you will be better because you are invested in them, and they can feel that. It's almost like it's a bank account, in that we have them with everybody. And it's not that our relationships are necessarily transactional, but when we're putting deposits into that relationship, putting those deposits in by the things that we do that they appreciate gives us a bank balance, because we're always writing checks. We forget something. We say something with a rude tone. Like, all of those things are ways where we are just writing those checks. And so when we're making more deposits than we are withdrawals, it's better. It's good for the bank account, and it's good for our relationships.
Oh, yes. Amen to that. I love that analogy of, just making those deposits over time, because essentially, yes, I can be guilty of being very task oriented. I want to get the job done. I want to do it well. And if I'm a leader and I have that mindset, I empathize, right? Like, come on, we got stuff to do. And then you forget, when you're so task oriented, that, oh wait, these are people with lives outside of this who, and I think something that's been illuminated to me lately is the emotional weight that we can carry, because again, life is lived outside the walls of your office or wherever you do work.
That's right.
And you have other elements, whether you have a family, whether you're married, whether you're single, fill in the blank. Life happens. And let's be honest, with us working women of faith, we recognize the brokenness of the world that we work in, right? And because of that, we have this emotional baggage, this emotional weight that we can carry sometimes. And what a gift to have a leader who recognizes that and wants to make those emotional deposits into their team, because like you said, it creates an intimacy there. It creates a deeper trust in that relationship. Before we continue, let's pause for a moment so we can share some opportunities for you to be a part of the Polish Network. And when we come back, Leah and I talk more about how embracing curiosity builds deeper relationships with the teams that we lead, and it gives us permission as leaders to bring our authenticity to the table. So stick around for the details. Are you a working woman looking to elevate your leadership this year? Polish Collaboratories could be your next right step in moving forward in your leadership development. Polish Collaboratories are small groups modeled after executive peer groups, yet available to working women at all levels of leadership. Collaboratory members dive into leadership training with a faith-forward perspective for 12 months. This is your opportunity to tap into diverse perspectives, conquer challenges, and achieve your goals in a united sisterhood. New groups are launching in 2024. We want you to be a part of it. So go to polishnetwork.org/collaboratories to learn more. Could you share maybe some specific strategies or examples of how leaders can actively practice curiosity in their interactions with their teammates? Like say the task-oriented person, because I know they're listening right now. Help us out. Like, what can we do? What are some strategies we can take to connect with our team?
Sure. So in the Bible, there's a lot of things that happen around food, and being able to being able to have conversation around food just opens up the conversation a little bit more. And so even doing, I mean, when we were in school, right, we'd have, you do enough things and the class earns a ice cream party, or, just all of those things.
Yes, I love that.
And maybe it's not an ice cream party, but maybe it is something like, hey, I just wanted to, maybe it is an ice cream party, actually, that would be fun. But it might just be, a run to Dunkin', and I'm going to get, coffee or donuts or whatever. Everybody put down what your favorite is and give it to me. You just learned something new about that person. And it's a little way that they're sharing with you and that you're getting curious about that. Or maybe doing, I have someone that I used to work with who the office would do different luncheons or something like that. And instead of it, if that's something that would be acceptable in your organization, maybe asking someone at an event like that, what did you bring, and tell me about it. That's such a great one for adults and kids. Oh, tell me about that. And that just opens up the door to information you didn't even know to ask. You don't have to come up with this great curious question. You can just ask a basic question and follow that with, oh, can you tell me more about that? Or can you tell it, or how was your weekend? Oh, I did such and such and such and such. Oh, could you tell me more about that? And, tell me more about that game or about that experience or something like that. It just opens up the door without having to put a lot of effort into trying to come up with the perfect question. Because that's another thing, task-oriented people tend to want to do it either the right way or their own way. So if you just go with something that is basic, tell me more about whatever, it just makes it easy.
I like that. Make it easy, keep it simple, involve food. I mean, yes. What more could you ask for? That seems to be like such an approachable way to take that next right step in pursuing that curiosity within our team. And I like that you use the phrase, the tell me more. That seems to be a magic phrase to get people to open up even more, right? Because they can tell you something like, oh, my kid had a game. Oh, interesting. I didn't know your kid was involved in a sport. Tell me more. And like
That's
people,
right.
I think people gravitate towards that invitation because they're like, oh, I can tell you more about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I find myself doing that all the time. I probably do it a ton on this podcast show too. Like, oh, let me tell you about this. But yes, that is such a simple and approachable way for us as leaders to consider our curiosity, to challenge us maybe if this is an area where we want to lead our teams with care, but curiosity maybe doesn't come as easily to us, right? So that that is very approachable, very, very meaningful for our team for sure. But then on the other hand, something I've observed throughout the years through my lived experience and through others' stories that I've heard is this challenge as leaders to create opportunities for people to voice their needs rather than telling them what their needs are or telling them what they need. How can leaders strike this balance between providing guidance and then allowing individuals to actually express their needs well?
That's such a good question, to strike that balance between telling someone what they need and allowing people to express. Sometimes some people are just more outgoing and will say what they need. And for them, they need to know that when they say what they need, it's not going to hurt them for saying it. Because that is something that can be hard. It can be a challenge. When you're the leader and you say, tell me what you need, and they tell you, and it feels uncomfortable if it's not what you want them to say. And so being able to let them know that you appreciate it, and and providing opportunity maybe in smaller areas first so that you can demonstrate that you do care. And asking them in small areas kind of as time goes. We do this with kids, right? When we have a new relationship in our life, we do that where we'll ask smaller things. You wouldn't ask a brand new boyfriend or dating partner that you've only been out with a few times, hey, would you help me move my whole apartment? That would be a big ask for a relationship that's young. And so if this trusting piece in the relationship and this caring piece in the relationship is newer for you because you haven't been thinking about it before and doing this, then asking other people for small things first is preferable because it builds that trust. They'll be more open to tell you the bigger things after they've had some opportunity for you to listen to them and to respond in a way where you're not acting like you're feeling threatened and where you're able to follow up with what they told you.
Yeah. And what I hear you say, it kind of goes back to this whole idea of building this space of trust, of putting that deposit in, right? As a leader.
Absolutely.
How am I, like you said, I don't know, I loved the example you gave, like you don't ask a new boyfriend or new relationship like, hey, move my whole apartment. That sounded like a whole Seinfeld episode where it's just like, there's this misunderstanding here of what a relationship is.
Right.
But yeah, I appreciate this challenge maybe to a leader who maybe they have this big vision and they want the feedback and they want this, but their team members aren't quite there in the relationship yet. They're still feeling you out. They're still, they need to know, like, okay, they say this is a trusted space. How trustworthy are you if we just like started out? And so I see that connecting to what you said earlier about the deposits. Like as leaders, we're, as we are curious and as we are trying to build this intentionality in how we are leading our team with care, we're placing this deposit of trust. And these trusts, I think Brene Brown says it's like marbles in a jar type thing. Like each little marble represents trust and it fills up the jar. And as it fills up, the deeper your relationship is, or the intimacy, and the professional relationship is there for, the space for people to share what needs to be shared and voice their needs, because again, like I empathize with it. I've been the new person on a team multiple times and the leaders on the team would say, give us feedback. And it's like, well, I have life experience that tells me that I can't go that far to give the honest feedback because I've gotten pushback, and so it's navigating that tension for sure, and
absolutely.
And, I think that's the challenge we face as leaders, right? To build that trust through our curiosity, and that curiosity seems to be a superpower. It sounds like
it is. It really
for
is.
leaders. Could you provide examples of like empowering questions leaders could ask to better understand the needs of the members of their team?
Sure. So part of asking what is needed, and this goes back to all the things we've been talking about, is just being able to have that place where you have the relationship built that you can ask and people will answer honestly. And so making those deposits. But I think even if you are clumsy at asking, being able to say, I know that I want to be supportive of you. And I want you to be honest with me on what you need. That goes a long way, building that relationship. And then you can say, own your part in it being awkward because it can be awkward. And if you are struggling with it, then say, I'm struggling with how to ask this. Because there's not a good formula. You have to do it this way and ask it in these words as much as it is that it's coming from your heart. And that's the bigger deal. It's not the words that you say. And it's okay to say, I feel clumsy. I don't know how to say this the right way, but this is what I want to understand. That makes a big difference. And that shows your own genuineness and your own ability to be vulnerable. And that creates the opportunity for the other person to be vulnerable back with you.
I think we can take for granted how far authenticity can take us in our leadership, in the relationships we build with our team. This idea sometimes, I don't know where we get this in our heads of, as a leader, I have to have it all together, and I have to be an excellent question asker, and I have to be in tune with like the pulse of my team, and I need to get everything done and in a 40-hour work week, or less. And it's, I'm hearing an invitation that you're sharing to embrace the awkward because,
absolutely,
awkwardness is a reality for a lot of us or for everyone, really.
Yes.
Own the awkwardness. And don't be afraid to bring your authenticity into your leadership, and even starting like, I don't know what to ask you, so can you help me understand? I feel like that's another deposit, right?
It is.
Yeah. And I think when it comes down to it, I don't know where this comes from or why we think this way, but do we really think that all our team members are looking at us with the expectation to have all the answers for everything? Like we certainly do the best that we can, right? We certainly try to make the best decision with the information that I have right now. And hope that it's the right one. And I guess that's like where like leadership pain can come into, like, what's your threshold there? I find navigating leadership pain an interesting facet to the leadership journey. It's just kind of releasing that need to have it, quote, all together.
Absolutely.
And kind of laying it all out on the table. and it's crucial to kind of come to that realization.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I think as leaders, we can get into this pattern, especially when conflict comes up or just something's just not going right or jiving at all. And it's easy for us to get into this fix it mode. Like, we don't want to just sit maybe in the tension or hold this awkward space. We just want to fix it and move on,
Yes.
But in reality, we really need to stop problem solving, right? And we need to focus on listening again and holding that space and trying to understand. How can leaders resist the urge to immediately provide solutions and instead create that space for an open dialogue and understanding, do you think?
I think part of it is taking a break. Sometimes when there's a pocket of silence, we are too quick to fill it. And so even if you make a practice of, especially as a leader, waiting, count to 5, maybe count to 10. And that's a good way to allow people that space. Sometimes it's uncomfortable for everybody, but
yeah, sure.
But it's another way where we're embracing the awkward, right? But giving space for people to be able to formulate a thought. That's another thing. Leaders who are that outgoing, task-oriented leader, they're going fast. Everything is fast. The more efficient we are, the faster we get it done, the better. And so there are people that have wonderful ideas, but they don't think as fast. And their ideas a lot of times are better because they've been thinking about them longer. And so giving them that space to be able to think about the answer or think about what they think would be helpful. And maybe it's, instead of a conversation, hey, can you tell me what you think should be better or what we should change? It can be more of, I have these questions. I'd really like to know your answer. I'm going to email them to you. And then when you get a chance, I'd like it if you could come and tell me what you think. And you might get more without having to feel as frustrated and waiting for the time and in that moment to be able to put that out there.
Sure.
Give them, I'm going to send this out on Thursday. Can we talk about this on Tuesday? I want to set a time for the team to get together or whatever, and to be able to have conversations based on those things that you want to know.
There's power in the pause. And as awkward as that can be, there is power in the pause.
Yes.
And I like that. I like that you said that, sometimes people on your team need that space to just really think and contemplate. I resonate with that deeply. I always hated being in team meetings and it's like, okay, we're going to go around the circle and we're going to,
right.
do X, Y, give our thoughts on X, Y, Z. And I'm like, I haven't had enough time to think about this, and we gotta share like right up front. But I think it is a wise thing, to really slow it down. And that's really hard. It's really hard, especially in the business world where things just happen so fast and decisions need to be made in the moment. And what would it look like? How would that impact us as leaders if we like ruthlessly resist rushing through our work? And what would it look like for us to wisely just pause and take a moment, assess the situation, give members on your team a moment to assess and think and put a deadline on it. Like you said, put a deadline on it. But that's just really a really wise strategy that I think all of us could embrace or even try to incorporate into the rhythm of our teams for sure.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to make a quick decision and I think the team understands those things, generally speaking.
Sure.
But even if it's a 2-hour, hey, we're going to have a meeting at 2, here at 11 is a list of the things that we're going to talk about so that you can come to the meeting prepared, would be a huge benefit to those people that process the information a little bit slower, but more methodical, and would give them the opportunity to give you some really great ideas that you might not have come to in a quick meeting.
Absolutely. And I think that's great. And I'm thinking of those people on the teams that we lead that maybe are struggling to find their own voice, like on the team. And, even with the pause, right? Even with the pause and this assignment's out there to give your feedback. How can leaders empower the individuals on their team to find their voice? And what role do you think curiosity for leaders does that play in the process of helping members of your team find their voice?
Yeah, I think understanding as leaders that every person is unique and that we're unique in our personality, we're unique in our experiences, we're unique in our values even. Being able to have those things in mind, just in a general sense. But then with someone that is struggling to find their voice, being able to be observant and say, hey, I've noticed that you're struggling to find your voice. Whatever that is and for that person, whether they don't speak in meetings or whatever it is that tips you off, to say your voice is important, to empower them. Your voice is important. And we are a better organization when your voice is present, and being able to emphasize that and maybe say, could we meet and you tell me what your thoughts are outside of the group environment to see what are those things that they're strong in so that you can be able to bring that up as and not necessarily in the group, because some people just don't want to speak up in a group. That just is really frightful to them. But to be able to have that opportunity for them to talk to you on the side, or maybe send you an email if they have an idea, and giving them other ways to excel that work for them and their personality and their values.
Again, I'm hearing the deposits. Like that's how leaders put more deposits into their team. Like this, if you take nothing away from this conversation today, put the deposits into your team. There's
one more thing I want to put kind of an additional piece to that deposit idea is that, and this goes for our relationships with our family too, but putting the deposits in that are meaningful to the other person. So personal example, with my husband, if if I make him a sandwich, I'm making a PB&J, and I say, hey, I'm making a PB&J. Do you want one? That simple. To him, that's like I gave a $50 deposit. To me, that feels like a $5 deposit, right?
Yes.
It's something that I was already doing, but I do it with him in mind. To him, that's huge. We have a blended family. We got married, tons of kids in the family. And so I was struggling over trying to make sure his laundry was done just perfectly and the way he wanted it done. And not because he has these super high standards, but just because that was part of my baggage that I was bringing into the relationship. And he said, I don't care if you do my laundry. Like, I am just as happy to take it to the dry cleaners and have them do my laundry. Sure. And so then it was kind of like, oh, me doing his laundry to him is not that big of a deposit. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to waste my time on the thing that doesn't feel like a deposit to him. That is a big cost to me, right? Because, you know, I got all these kids running around and stuff. And so it's better. It's finding the thing that for you does not feel like a huge lift, but for the other person feels like a big deposit is really a game changer. Whether that's with our family or our friends or in our work life, understanding the other person, and that takes some curiosity to understand what is it that is meaningful to them. Because for some people, it's meaningful to them. If you ask them, how are your kids doing? You know, they have the picture on the desk. How are your kids doing? If you remember their kids' names, that is super meaningful to them. Other people, they don't want to talk about their family at work. And they are happier if you give them the details of what you want the first time you ask them. That to them is a huge deposit. And so being able to pay attention, and maybe when you're getting started at this, if this is something new for you, you keep a little notebook or a note in your phone, and you just put down the things that you notice are important to those people. A good thing that is helpful in being able to really understand is to maybe as a team or maybe you just as a person doing a DISC assessment. I love DISC assessments because you're able to really see what is it that's motivating to you. And if you have your team do it, they can go through and you can get a team plot that shows you which people on your team are more outgoing versus reserved or people versus task. And it just can make a big difference in understanding those dynamics faster, but you don't have to do that to learn. It just takes intentionality and it takes some time.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about leaders who intentionally get to know their team members. They make themselves available.
Yes.
I always kind of notice that about leaders that have come across in my life, and the ones that have been most impactful are the ones who made themselves accessible and available to their team. And whenever like I or someone would approach them, it wasn't like we were bothering them, you know, because, you know, we're all busy. We all got the long task list, but it was the leader that was like genuinely like, I'm so glad to see you. Like, what's up, you know, and taking that time. And if I had a leader who got me like my favorite, like I always say donuts are my love language. If they like showed up with like, hey, you know, I got you a donut today or whatever, that would like have been like $100 deposit in my bank, you know? And so it's kind of like, I don't know, like I when I think about that, I think about like, how can we like surprise people with our intentionality, if you will, because it makes you feel seen. I think that's really what I'm trying to get at here. And I think there is power in that, especially in the teams that we build and the teams we're a part of, is like people want to be seen and they want to be known. And how powerful that, if you use your curiosity as a leader to really get to know the people you're working alongside, to really just engage and get to know their likes, their dislikes, what makes them tick, take a disc assessment, whatever.
Or even I worked in a place once where when we did our in processing, they had us fill out this form of, what's your favorite snack and what's your favorite candy and those types of things. And then they had them, and randomly we might find on our desk that, there's a Snickers bar or there's something, or there's a note saying, hey, I appreciate you. And those things were just so powerful.
Yeah. And I think, it's just those little acts of kindness and intentionality. Like you said, it goes miles. It just goes miles in building that relationship. That's so cool. A lot of things for us to think about as we, use this curiosity to pursue our team members, if you will. The teams that we're leading, how can we bring that care into the work that we do every single day? I do want to call out, this is not necessarily a reality for a lot of people. I'm sure there are listeners. I have worked on teams where the leaders really weren't that intentional. They weren't curious. They just wanted to get the job done and whatever, I don't care. How would you advise someone who finds themselves working under a leader who is not naturally curious? Are there any strategies these individuals could employ to kind of manage up or foster a more curious and empathetic leadership style within their team? Or, what do we do with
That's such a great
when we're on the team?
Such a great question. One of the things that I think is meaningful is if you can have curiosity about that person that's not having curiosity. And one way you're modeling, right? You're modeling this curiousness, but you can also start to pay attention to what are those things that you doing it puts a deposit in the relationship account with them. Because when you have when you've built up funds in that account, you can write bigger checks. And
I like
so that. If there is this piece where it's missing that maybe there's some tone deafness or something like that, but this boss or this manager really wants to know the details, right? On something, or forgets the details if you tell them. So you make a point to, you put it in an email because you know that they need that, or you can say the why to something because that's something that's important to them. Like understanding what's the question that they're asking. Is it a what question, a how question, a why question, a who question? Like being able to intentionally think one step beyond what they're really asking will help you to start building that rapport with them, that you can ask questions that would be a little bit different and be able to give them feedback on their leadership style that would be more, they'd be more receptive to, because you've built this savings account in your relationship with them.
Well, once again, I think curiosity is this superpower, because what I'm hearing is we are empowered even just as a team member, not just as a team member, but like maybe you're not the top dog or the leader, maybe you're under a leader who isn't very curious, and you can flip the script and kind of take that first step. And like you said, maybe it'll be just enough for you to model it, but then like you said, start making those deposits. Like it goes both ways. It's a mutual relationship, and curiosity is the key to it all.
Yes. And I think if you have built that relationship, you can make the types of comments to say, I think that our team would be better if we could be more curious about each other or understand each other better. Might be another way to say it. If we understood each other better, I think that might help our team dynamic, which is another way of saying we should be curious without using that word.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Leah's jumping in the Ask Me Anything hot seat. So let's get curious and learn more about her together. Stay tuned. Recent reports indicate that isolation, loneliness, and lack of leadership growth opportunities weigh heavily on working women today. And these are just some of the many reasons why the Polish Network is on a mission to embolden women in their faith and work. And we invite you to join us as a Polish partner. Visit polishnetwork.org/give and help us ensure a steady foundation for women to find the vital community they crave, the professional development they deserve, and the gospel they need. Well, welcome back, friends, to the Polish Podcast. We hope you're enjoying our conversation that we're having today with Leah Brown. And now it's time to add a dash of spontaneity and a sprinkle of fun to the show. It's time for Ask Me Anything. Leah, this is how Ask Me Anything works. It's a chance for us to kind of peel back the layers, get to know the woman behind the work and the quirks behind your expertise. And we've curated a list of a few questions for you, and we're just going to follow our curiosity and know more about you. Are you ready?
Ready. Let's go.
All right. Question 1. Given the emotional demands of your profession, being in the mental health profession, how do you prioritize self-care in your own life?
So a lot of times we think of self-care as, I'm going to go get my nails done or day at the spa or going for a hike or something like that. Maybe if it's just taking a bath. Those are all great things. I think one of the things that I do that's a little bit beyond those kind of surfacey things that we tend to think about is I try to manage my schedule with the things I know that are going to take more energy so that I don't do a bunch of really, in my practice, I do a range of appointment lengths. And so I'll do 4-hour appointments and I don't ever schedule 2 4-hour appointments on the same day.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
just
for sure.
Things like that of looking at what manages my energy the best. And sometimes it's, I know I have a lot going on that one day. And so I give myself an office day or something like that so that I can kind of keep up with stuff. I personally am a great optimist. And so I usually try to do more than I probably should. But being able to know that about myself, the things we need to be curious about ourselves on too, right?
Yes, exactly. I'm listening, I'm leaning in.
But trying to schedule my meetings and the things that I'm doing in a way that is mindful of the other things going on in my life, the things going on professionally, the things going on with my kids, giving myself, if I know I'm going to take a trip, then giving myself some time before and after the trip for recovery instead of saying, I'm back and trying to get right back into it. That's what I do for myself to try to manage and self-care myself.
I love that. And I think you're speaking truth into all of us too. I think we're all optimists when it comes to our time.
Yes.
And then we realize, this takes a lot more or drains me a lot more. So I love that. I love that you do that. And that's encouraging to hear. We're going to have to practice some of that for sure. Look at what fills us up.
That's right.
So, yes. So question 2, how have you managed career advancement while being a working mom? I know we have a lot of working moms that listen to this show, and I'm curious, that's just the word of the day. What challenges have you encountered along the way as your career has advanced and you've navigated that?
So I'm in an unusual spot in that I'm a solopreneur. I know I'm not the only one, but I started kind of later in life. I started my private practice in 2020, January 2020, before everything blew up. And
what?
Yes. And so, that was a really odd year. But then I've been kind of building. In some ways, I still feel like my practice is my side business. Like I'm trying to adjust my thinking that it's not just my side business anymore. But it's been a building process. And so some of the challenges with being a working mom is really trying to balance out my energy and my time, because I do have 4 kids at home, and my oldest at home is a senior in high school. And so that's a whole nother thing in and of itself. My first girl that's graduating. And I mean, even things like getting senior pictures was way different with my boys than with her.
I'm taking notes. I got 2 boys and a girl. So yeah.
And I know it's not only boy girl, but just with my family, It was totally that way.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and I loved it because it was a new experience for me too, to do it with her. And so just as I'm trying to balance my time and my energy has been the biggest struggle for me as a working mom. And so that I have energy for my clients that I'm supposed to have, and I have the energy I'm supposed to have for my kids and for my husband.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, and I think that goes back to the self-care too, is being able to look at what really another bank account illustration, but what am I doing that's making those deposits? Cause I feel like it is more rewarding for me to feel like I had a great session and that I helped someone, that feels like an encapsulated reward, right? It's a done product. With being a mom, it never is like that. It's like you have this, yay, high five, I did great right here.
Yes.
And then like 5 minutes later, I didn't do what I did. I was not my best self then.
Well, there's a lot of grace for that. I hear you.
Yeah.
And it can be a thankless job sometimes.
Yes. Well, and sometimes, and it's not even necessarily the kids. It's just me.
Right.
And me feeling like I didn't put out my best self in that moment, that I was frustrated. Right. And so I feel like that's my biggest struggle. And what I am trying to do about it is to balance my energy, and getting the type of rest that's good for me at each section of time, which I talked about rest a few times in my podcast too. And being able to look at what are the different types of rest that we need, because it's not just sleep.
Well, I hear you on the rest piece. Rest is important, and it is in many different facets of our life, right?
Yeah.
So, so that's a good word for all of us, a good example for us, to just, working moms, you're doing all right. You're doing all right.
Right.
And, just do the next right thing to fill your tank, for sure. Okay. Our final question for this segment, question 3, can you share a passion or an interest or a hobby that might surprise people who know you?
Ooh, I used to, and I would like to again, when I can make some more margin in my time. I used to refinish furniture and loved it. That was so fun. Yes. And it's satisfying to take something and then to remake it to look like something else. That is so much fun.
Wow. I'm impressed, Leah. I had no idea.
Don't be too impressed. It's not like it's not as good as like the videos that you see on social media where it's like, oh my gosh, I never would have even seen that would come out of that. It's not like that, but a fresh coat of paint or a stain or, it can be, it's a lot of fun.
Well, you know what, whatever floats your boat, Leah, I'm still impressed. I do not share that passion, so I have mucho respect for those who do have that, because it is a craft, it is an art, no matter what level you're at, in my opinion. So,
thank you. Yeah, it's awesome.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing these little tidbits of your life with us, Leah. And here's the thing, friends, we want you to be a part of the conversation. We want your burning questions, your curious musings, and your wild wonderings about our guests. So if there's something you've just always wanted to ask, now is your chance. If you want to learn more, you can go to polishnetwork.org and go to our podcast landing page to learn more. Send in your questions today. As we conclude our conversation, I mean, could you share a pivotal moment in your own journey where leading with care and staying curious made a significant impact on your personal growth as a leader and therapist?
I had a boss and a supervisor, my second job as a therapist, who was really encouraging and asked good questions of me, but also kind of painted her vision of where she saw that I was doing well. And that was really, really powerful for me. And there have been times where those words have come back to me, and that it has given me the courage to take a step that or even sometimes in my line of work, to ask a question that might be a little bit risky, that what she told me kind of comes back to me, and I say, okay, well, this is what she saw in me. I'm going to lean into this thing or into that thing because I have some confidence, because she was willing to not just get to know me, but to also kind of speak a vision and to speak life into me and my role in the job that I had then, that's carried over even all these years later now.
What a gift to just have those words that you kind of held on to. And that just highlights to me how important it is for us for the words that we say to people. Those words have power, you know,
they do.
Whether they're helpful or they're harmful, they have power. And what a gift to have a leader like that saw that strength in you, that called that out in you, and you held on to that, you know, as those moments where you're like, I just need a little boost here of confidence, for sure, because someone else called it out in you. And I think that is just so powerful and something for us to consider as leaders as well. So for our listeners who are aspiring leaders or seeking to enhance their leadership skills, what practical advice or key takeaway would you offer to help them implement the principles of leading with care and curiosity in their own professional and personal lives?
Well, I would say the types of conversations that you have with people and your curiosity is important. And I have a recommendation on a book. It's called The 6 Conversations by Heather Holleman. It is an excellent book on having conversations and being curious. And another thing that is in that book, but is a big part of counseling, is holding people with positive regard. And that you are thinking the best of people, that when you're asking them a question and you're being curious, or when they're asking you a question, that believing the best about them affects how you ask a question, how you answer it. And so being able to see the best in them and to call that out of them, is really important, especially if you're an aspiring leader. Being in a place where you're paying attention to catching people doing a great job and mentioning it, but also maybe writing a thank you note. That would be such a powerful thing to say, hey, I saw, you did a great job on this thing, a thank you note, an email, something to just acknowledge to them that you caught them doing something good, or that you saw them doing something that was a great thing. Makes such a big difference in building that rapport. And doing that as you're growing in your leadership, starting that early, will just mean that it will continue. I had a boss once that used to write thank you notes, and it was just so cool. You'd just go to your desk one day and there would be a note that he wrote, and I was the secretary. And it was just so cool to get things like that.
It's things like that that make it more than a job. I don't know how else to say it. Again, it's back to that piece, like you feel seen, and it's you're human. You're recognized. Your humanity is recognized. I think that's what I'm trying to get at here. Yes. And like, you are here to do a job, but we also see you as a human being, and we, honor you, and we want to serve you well. Because when, like we said, like when those deposits build up, that can empower us even as team members to go maybe above and beyond the work that we're doing. So I think that's so cool, that you had a leader, a boss that did that. And it's just those little things. It may seem so simple, but I think sometimes the simplest things make the greatest impact.
Yes.
So, gosh, Leah, What a gift this conversation has been for us, for our listeners. You shared that one book. Do you have any other resources for us that you would recommend as we just learn more about cultivating curiosity in our leadership?
Yes. My podcast is called A Flourishing Flame, From Burning Out to Burning Bright. That's a great resource. I keep the episodes short so that they're manageable for a trip to the grocery store or something like that, just in the car. And I try to keep them super practical because I feel like if you can't make it work in your life immediately, then that's another thing you have to figure out what to do. And we don't have time for that. So
yes, amen, sister.
Yes. Easy to grab. And then I actually have information about DISC assessments on my website, which is leahlittlebrown.com. And I have information for if that's something you want to do for yourself and just helping you with your leadership style. There's a leadership version that gives you what are you like as a leader and how do you interact with different people who have different personalities than you. And so that can be just for you, or if you want to do it for a team, that can be done for a team where you can be able to see what everyone on your team, what their strengths are based on their personality. And it gives for a good conversation because we're not our personality. It's just a part of us. But when we can understand what motivates us, it can make it easy to motivate ourselves and motivate others. And the third way to work with me is if you wanted to work with me with therapy. I do regular appointments, but I also do therapy retreats where you can, if there's something that's really a burning thing you want to work through, especially if you've had some trauma that's getting in your way, that we do some pre-sessions and then you can come to my office and in beautiful Fredericksburg, Virginia, and be able to spend a weekend or a few days working through those issues to really make a big impact in a short amount of time.
Awesome. And we can learn all about that at your website, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. We will be sure to link to all the resources you shared with us, specifically your website and the books and your podcast, all the things we want our people to get connected to you. So Leah, thank you so much for just joining us today. It's been just so wonderful to hear more about the way you think, the way you work, and the way you integrate your faith into all of it. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Such a pleasure. I love working with you any chance I get, Jane. Oh, and also the conference.
Yeah.
Yes, please. The Boldly conference. That's coming up in October, and I'm going to have a breakout session at the Boldly conference. So if you're coming, tell me you heard me on the podcast, because I would love to meet you in person.
Oh, yes. Be sure. I'm so glad you plugged that, Leah. Thank you so much. BoldlyConference.com. Tickets are on sale October 18th.
You don't want to miss it. It's amazing.
You don't. It is a transformational day, and it was awesome.
Deeply
That's when we met for the first time.
That's right.
So yeah, awesome. So yes, buy your tickets today and check it out. I'm so excited. I can't wait. I mean, wow. Isn't Leah amazing? I just love how she encourages us to embrace those awkward moments and flex our curiosity muscles. It really helps us to build stronger teams and take better care of each other. This whole idea of leading with care is showing us how giving and receiving care can fulfill our needs, deepen our bonds, and give our lives more meaning. And being curious, it's like the secret sauce that lets us bring our whole selves to work and make the magic happen. Do you have a different takeaway from today's conversation? And if so, let me know. Share your thoughts for this episode on our Instagram post, or if you're watching on YouTube, in the comments below. Let's continue this dialogue on leading with care together. As we wrap up this episode, I want to express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who plays a role in making the Polish Podcast a reality. The Polish Podcast is made possible in part by the generous support of Coca-Cola Consolidated. A special thank you to Leah Brown for encouraging us to flourish and grow in our curiosity. If you loved her insight, you're going to love her podcast, Flourishing Flame. Be sure to check it out on Spotify. In fact, we linked it in our show notes below, so be sure to check it out. To our loyal listeners, your unwavering support and your engagement, that drives us to deliver content that resonates and emboldens you. Thank you to the Polish Network for creating a nurturing community where women in the workforce can thrive and connect. A big thank you to White Oak Christian Church for your partnership and contributions to the production of these episodes. And remember, leading with care requires a level of intentional curiosity where we can actively make deposits in relationships. Whether it's a PB&J sandwich, a thank you note, or an unexpected treat, remember,
putting the deposits in that are meaningful to the other person.
Well, if you are looking for a community of ambitious women looking to be emboldened in their faith and their work, you found the right place. Be sure to stay connected with us on our social media and our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you would, rate and review the Polished Podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But until next time, friends, this is Jane Doerman signing off. Keep moving forward and remain emboldened.